Hey, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're gonna get started on the wheel customization. This might be a little bit of a lengthy video because we are gonna do both widgets and the code so that we can get the wheel customization done in one video. So with that, let's get started. So first, I'm gonna create a folder. I'm gonna call a new folder. I'm gonna call this customize. Just want to keep things nice and organized. We'll take the customize widget, move it in there. Then we're gonna open it, and then we're gonna create another widget. So we're just gonna select this one since it's empty. Control B, and then this is gonna be. I'm gonna call this one the wheels. So we're gonna open up both of them. Stop this to the top, and then in the wheels widget, we are gonna change from the full screen to the desired on screen. And then the first thing we're going to add is a size box. So add a size box. And then in the size box, we're going to add a button. And then in the button, we are going to add a text block. So depending on whether you are going to use text or image, this is what you will add next. I am going for a text, so I'm adding a text block. But if you have an image, then you would instead use the image. So I'm going to add the text. And then I'm going to select the size box and then do a width and height override. So it's 388 by 162. And then we are going to select the button. 32 is variable, and then rename it to wheels button. Then the text block or the image in whichever one you selected, gonna also make this is variable, and then rename this to name. Then we're gonna compile. Then we're gonna head over to the event graph. And then what we're going to do first is we're going to create a function, and then this function is going to be the load vehicle ID. So we're going to drag off, look for does save game exist. The save game is the vehicle ID. From the return value, drag off, look for the branch. From the true, drag off, and then load game from slot. And then we're going to take the vehicle ID, Control C, Control V. And then from the return value on the load, drag off, and then cost to BP save game. Then from the as BP save game, I'm gonna drag off and then get vehicle ID. And then from vehicle ID, drag off, then promote to variable, connect the execution pin. And then we're gonna head back to the event graph, compile and save. And then we're gonna take the event construct and the event pre-construct, just drag them up a bit. And then underneath the event construct, right click and then get game instance. From the return, drag off and then cost to BPGI game, connect the execution pin, drag off, and then cost to, oh no wait, no, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to drag off and then promote this to a variable. And then from there, we're gonna drag off and then get all actors of class. And then the class we're looking for is the main parent vehicle. In my case, it is the tutorial, the BP tutorial. And then we're going to drag off, and then we're going to get copy, and then drag off from there, and then promote this to a variable. And then this is going to be BP tutorial, connect the execution pin. And then after that, we're going to drag in the load vehicle ID, connect that execution pin. And then from here, we're going to drag in the name to drag it in, get name, and then drag off and then set text, connect the execution pin, and then from the in text, drag off and then promote this to a variable. And then this is going to be called name text. And then it needs to be instance editable and expose on spawn. And then we're going to create two other variables. This is going to be the front wheels, and it is going to be a skeletal mesh object reference. Also instance editable, expose on spawn. And then we're going to select the front wheels, Control D, and then rename this to rear wheels. And then we're going to drag in the front wheels, hold Alt, drag it in, connect the execution pin, and then drag in the front wheels, and then just drop it on the pin. And then do the same for the rear wheels, hold Alt, drag it in, and then drag in the rear wheels again, and then drop it on the pin, and then connect it as such. And then we need one last variable. So add another variable. This is going to be the wheel index. And then this is going to be of type integer. And then this one also is instant editable, expose on spawn. And then we're going to put this as well. We're going to do the same thing. Just hold Alt, drag it in, connect the execution pin, and then drag it in and drop it on the pin. And then that will be it for the event construct. And then now we're going to do the buttons. Let's just compile and save. So the wheels button, the on click, what we're going to do is we're going to take the BP tutorial, the parent vehicle, hold control, drag it in, and then we're going to drag off, and then we're going to look for the set wheels, the set front and rear wheels function we created, and then connect the execution pin, and then we're going to take the variables, the front wheels to the front wheels, the rear wheels to the rear wheels, and then we're going to drag off after the set front and rear wheels, drag off and then create save game object. Save game is the BP save game, and then we are going to drag in the as BPGI game, drag off, and then get garage cars, drag off from there, get a copy, get a reference, my bad, let's get a reference, take the vehicle ID, drop it on the pen, and then we are going to drag off and then break, and then we're going to expand it, and then what we're going to look for is the wheel save. But before we move on, we are going to go back to the create save game object, drag off, and then promote this to a variable. Then this is going to be BP save game, and then we're going to drag in the wheel index, hold control, drag it in, and then from the set, drag off, and then set wheel ID, connect the execution pin, take the wheel index, connect that to the set wheel ID, and then we're going to drag off and then save game to slot, and then the slot would be the wheel save, select the break, hide unconnected, and then drag in the BP save game, and then just drop that on the save game object pin, and then that will be it for the wheels button. Compile and save, and then now we're going to get started on the customize widget. So on the customize widget, first thing I'm going to add is a canvas panel, and then we're going to add an overlay, and then select the overlay, anchors, shift control, set it to the entire screen, and then the next thing we're going to add is a vertical box. Drop that on the overlay, and then we are going to add a scroll box. Drop that in the vertical box, select the vertical box, align it to the center bottom, and then actually no, the horizontal alignment should be set to completely fill. And then we're going to add padding on the left and the right of 50, and then at the bottom going to add a padding of 30, and then we're going to add a size box also to the vertical box. And then within the size box, we're going to add a button. And then on the button, we are going to add a text box. This is going to be the back button. So select the size box. And then we are going to set its horizontal alignment to the left. Then want to give it a padding of 10 all around, expand. And then on the left specifically, going to give it a padding of 150. Width and height override 120 by 50. Select the text, change the text to back, select the button, set it to is variable, and then rename it to back. And then for the scroll box, I'm gonna rename this to wheels, set it to is variable, and then change the orientation from vertical to horizontal. And then we're gonna compile, save, and then head over to the event graph. And then we're gonna create a function. This is the load vehicle ID, and then we're going to go to the wheels widget, go to the load vehicle ID, and then just copy the code, Control C, back to the customize, Control V, and then just connect the execution pin, and then from the vehicle ID, drag off promote variable, connect the execution pin, and then we're going to head back to the event graph. Then in the event graph, take the event pre-construct and the event construct, just drag them out of the way. and then we are going to right click, get game instance. From the return value, drag off and cost to BPGI game, connect the execution pin. From the as BPGI game, drag off promote to variable, and then we are going to add a sequence, hold S and then left click, and then connect that. And then on the then 0, we're going to take the vehicle ID and then connect that. And then for the then 1, we are going to drag in the as BPGI game, drag off, and then get BPS garage cars, drag off from there, get a reference, connect the vehicle ID, drag this back a bit, and then we're going to drag off and then break, and then expand that. And then the one we're looking for is the BPS wheels, so drag off from there. Then we'll look for each loop, select the break, hide unconnected. From the then 1 from the sequence, connect it to the for each loop, and then from the array element, drag off and then break BPS wheels, and then from the loop body, drag off, and then we're going to look for create widget, and the widget we're looking for is the wheels, and then we're going to drag in the wheels variable we created, hold control, drag it in, and then we're going to drag off from there and then add child. So we're going to connect the execution pin, and then from the return value, drag that into the content. And then for the create widget, just drag this a bit out the way. So for the wheel index, that's going to be the array index, because every time the for each loop runs, every wheel that you have in your BPS wheels for the selected car will generate a number, and that will be the number that will be the wheel index, which will also then be the wheel ID for the selected car. So from the array index, connect that to the wheel index, and then expand that. And then if you have an image, then you would use the image, but I'm using text, so I'm connecting the name to the name text, front wheels to the front wheels, and then the rear wheels to the rear wheels, and then that will be it. Then we can hide unconnected. Add a redirect node here just to kind of make it look a little bit neater, and then just bring this back a bit, and then that will be it for the wheels. Just align this. I'm gonna compile, save, and then we're gonna go and test out the code to see if it works. Oh, before we do that, actually we need to do the back button. So on the back button, unclick, we're gonna drag off and then remove from parent, and then we're gonna create widget, and then the widget we are creating is the workshop, and then drag off from the return value and then add to viewport. So let's compile and save, and then run the code. So we're gonna go to the customize widget, and then as you can see, I have 2 here. I go back, comes back here, but let's see, we have this one, and then we have this one. So we've selected, it does change. Select the other one, changes again. So we're going to select this one, add back, and then we are going to close to see if it works. Add back in, and it corresponds in with the changed wheels. So the code works, the customize does in fact work. It saves the value and then loads it up again when you re-enter your game with its save file. One thing I did forget to mention is if you play the level and you look at the customize, you can see the buttons sit on top of each other. So if you don't want that, head over to the wheels widget, select the button, and then give it some padding. I'll give it a padding of 5. I'm going to compile, play the level, and then now if you go to the customize, you can see there is some space between the buttons now. So you can just create the offset so the buttons don't sit on top of each other by adding padding to the wheels widget. So I just forgot to mention that while we were busy creating the widget. So with that, that brings us to the end of the wheel customization video. And until the next one.